Man, by his very nature and of his own accord, strives towards self-realization. His set of values evolves from such striving. Apparently, he cannot develop his full human potential unless he is truthful to himself, unless he is active and productive, unless he relates himself to others in the spirit of mutuality. Let's dive into the deep end of self-realization. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the depth of your being. This is where we will explore the concept of neurosis, an integral part of the human psyche that is often misunderstood. A condition that has been perceived with varying degrees of stigma, painting an unfavorable picture of those grappling with its clutches. However, what if I told you that neurosis, as challenging as it might be, is a part of human existence? It is a struggle that arises when the path to self-realization becomes entangled, blocked by invisible barriers that we unconsciously construct within ourselves, barriers that instead of protecting us, alienate us from our true selves. Today, we venture on a journey to understand these barriers, to shed light on the maze that is neurosis and its intricate relation to the self. We'll be looking at neurosis as an internal conflict, a disconnect between who we truly are and who we believe we should be. The conflict that leads us down the path of alienation and estrangement from our genuine selves. Please remember, this journey may stir deep emotions as we delve into the corners of our psyche often left unexplored. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, you can take a break, reflect, and return later. Also, we encourage you to reach out to mental health professionals in your local community. So if you're ready, let's delve deeper into this fascinating yet perplexing realm of neurosis. Just imagine walking in front of a funhouse mirror, the kind that warps and distorts your reflection. Now picture this distorted image as a version of yourself that you project to the world, the idealized self. This is not who you truly are, but it's who you believe you need to be, what the world wants you to be. On the other hand, your real self, the true version of you, is the reflection in a clear and distorted mirror. In the journey of life, we often lose touch with our real selves and create an idealized version, a more perfect version that meets society's standards. It's like wearing a mask that hides our true face. This idealized self might seem necessary, desirable even, but it creates a disconnection, a split between who we are and who we want to be. Now you might wonder, isn't it normal to want to improve, to be better? Of course it is. However, the idealized self is different from your real self. The idealized self is entitled and is not interested in developing your core being. It is interested in destroying your real self so that it can stay and be the ruling force. Of course, this leads to unrealistic expectations and constant dissatisfaction and self-criticism. This fight between the real self and the idealized self is one of the root causes of neurosis. In the striving to meet these impossible standards, we start rejecting parts of our real selves, especially those that we deem undesirable or imperfect. The more we reject, the more we alienate ourselves from our true identity. We might win applause from the outside world, but within ourselves, we become strangers. We drift further away from our real selves, and this journey of self-alienation silently paves the way to neurosis. To navigate this journey, it's crucial to understand the forces that drive this alienation. If you've enjoyed the video so far, do not let neurosis play tricks in your mind. Click the like button and also hit the subscribe button so that this video can reach out to many people. Alright, let's move on to this big, confusing thing called alienation. Picture this. You're standing in a room full of mirrors, but instead of seeing yourself as you are, each mirror shows a slightly different version of you. Maybe in one mirror you're taller, in another you have a different hair color. That's kind of what alienation is like. You feel a little lost, unsure of who you truly are because of these different mirror images of yourself. Now let's talk about the forces that cause this alienation. This disconnect between the real you and the mirror image. There are three key culprits we'll talk about today. Compulsive forces, active moves away from the real self, active moves against the real self. Let's start with compulsive forces. Imagine you're a puppet on strings, and these forces are the puppet master. They're things that control us and make us do stuff we don't necessarily want to do. Like a weird habit or action we can't seem to stop. The very compulsive character of these drives inevitably deprives us of our full autonomy and spontaneity. As soon as, for instance, our need to be liked by everybody becomes compulsive, the genuineness of our feelings diminishes, so does our power to discriminate. As soon as we are driven to do a piece of work for the sake of glory, our spontaneous interest in the work itself decreases. Now we've got active moves away from the real self. The whole drive for glory is such a move, particularly through our determination to mold ourselves into something we're not. We feel what we should feel, wish what we should wish, like what we should like. We become something different from what we are or could be. We then become ashamed of what we actually are, and we lose interest in our real self. Finally, the active moves against the real self. Now this one's a bit harsher. You're actively rejecting and fighting against who you truly are. The idealized self hates the real self, but since both are inside of our minds, then we hate ourselves. The idea of being oneself even becomes loathsome and terrifying. As a protection against this terror, the person makes himself disappear. He has an unconscious interest in not having a clear perception of himself, in making himself as if it were deaf, dumb, or blind. Not only does he blur the truth about himself, he is interested in blunting his sensitiveness to what is true and what is false, not only inside but also outside himself. He has an interest in maintaining his haziness, although he may consciously suffer under it. Our journey here might seem overwhelmingly complex and disheartening, but remember, understanding is the first step towards resolution. By shining a light on these alienation forces, we are arming ourselves with knowledge, a powerful weapon against the specter of neurosis. After understanding the forces that drive us into the chasm of alienation, let's delve deeper into what it feels like to be in its grip. It's a feeling many of us have encountered at some point in our lives, often lurking in the shadows of our consciousness, pulling us away from our authentic selves. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, looking at your reflection, but the person staring back at you feels like a stranger. You go about your daily life, perform your roles, accomplish tasks, but it all feels hollow, like you're watching someone else's life play out. This, dear listeners, is experience of alienation. You might feel emotionally distant, disconnected from your feelings, almost as if you're observing them from a distance. You might find it hard to express or even understand your own emotions. This emotional disconnect is not limited to you, but extends to the people around you. You might struggle to form meaningful connections, leaving you feeling lonely and isolated. When we are alienated, our sense of self is often fragmented, divided between the real and the idealized self. It's like living in a split-screen reality, with one screen showing who we truly are and the other showing who we wish to be or who others expect us to be. This split breeds internal conflict, anxiety, and an overwhelming feeling of inauthenticity. The experience of alienation, while disconcerting, is an alarm bell, a call to action. It signals that we are living against our true nature, against our true selves. But what happens when we choose to ignore this signal, to live in the state of disconnect? The effects of such a choice can be quite profound. Let's examine the first major effect, the dominance of pride over our feelings. Awareness, strength, and most feelings are determined mainly by the pride systems. Genuine feelings for ourselves are dampened or diminished, sometimes to a vanishing point. In short, pride governs our feelings. This is not a normal pride, from the dictionary. When we have that idealized image and imagine what we should be, we then unconsciously want the world to prove to us that we are the idealized image. This causes neurotic pride, which is a form of self-deception. It stems not from genuine accomplishments, but from our disconnection from ourselves. When pride dominates our feelings, it serves as a protective armor, a buffer between our idealized selves and the realities of our human vulnerabilities. The problem arises when we start mistaking this armor for our actual selves. Our emotions then become performance-driven, tied to the accolades we receive or the expectations we must fulfill. In this process, we distance ourselves from our authentic feelings. The neurotic is liable to play down those feelings which run counter to his pride and to emphasize those which might add to it. If in his arrogance he feels vastly superior to others, he cannot allow himself to feel envy. His pride in self-discipline may put a lead on feelings of enjoyment. If he is proud of his vindictiveness, vindictive rage may be keenly felt. Pride in absolute endurance may stop the person from any feeling of suffering. But if suffering plays an important part within his pride system or as a vehicle for expressing resentment, then suffering is not only emphasized in front of others, but it's felt more deeply. A feeling of compassion may be chalked off if it's regarded as weakness, but may be fully experienced if it's regarded as a godlike attribute. Imagine being in a room filled with applause, but the claps and cheers don't bring joy because they're directed at the mask you wear, not the person beneath. This is what it feels like when pride governs our feelings. We may project confidence and success, but inside we feel hollow, devoid of genuine, self-driven emotion. This phenomenon often gives rise to what we call pride-dampening feelings, where the sense of pride we feel is not fulfilling but rather dampens our capacity to experience real joy, love, and connection. The more pride has taken over, the more a person can respond emotionally to life only with his pride. It is as if he has shut away his real self in a soundproof room and can only hear the voice of pride alone. His feeling satisfied or dissatisfied, dejected or elated, his likes or dislikes of people, then, are mostly pride responses. Likewise, the suffering he consciously feels is mainly a suffering of his pride. This is not apparent on the surface. It feels convincingly real to him that he suffers from failures, from feelings of guilt, loneliness, unrequited love, and he does indeed. But the question is, who suffers? In analysis, it turns out that it's mostly his proud self. He suffers because he feels that he has failed to achieve supreme success, to do things to ultimate perfection, to be so irresistibly attractive as to be sought out always, to make everybody love him. Or he suffers because he feels entitled to success or popularity, which are not forthcoming. Only when the pride system is considerably undermined does he begin to feel true suffering. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into the implications of pride governing our feelings and how it shapes our relationships and self-perception. As we navigate further into the land of alienation, another significant effect that we uncover is the profound loss of energy. When we are trapped in the cage of an idealized self, our life force, our vital energy gets sucked into maintaining this image. Take John, for example, an ambitious entrepreneur who tirelessly chases the image of the successful business tycoon. John works relentless hours, sacrificing sleep, health, and relationships, all for the pursuit of this ideal. His pride has led him to believe that his worth is intrinsically linked to his business's success. But what happens when the business suffers a setback or when he faces failure? A disheartening weight of exhaustion descends on him. He spends so much energy pursuing an ideal that when reality hits, the backlash is enormous. His life force, instead of being used for self-improvement, growth, and satisfaction, was expended in maintaining an illusion, leading to a palpable loss of energy. Much like John, when we distance ourselves from our true selves, we waste valuable energy. The energy we could have used for genuine growth and happiness is instead wasted on sustaining a facade, an image of the idealized self. This not only leaves us exhausted, but also devoid of the vitality and enthusiasm that makes life worthwhile. The funny point for John is that it's not only a question of having no energies left for his personal life and its growth, but the fact is that even if he had energies left, he would unconsciously refuse to use them in behalf of his real self. To do so would run contrary to the intent of his self-hate, which is to keep his real self down. The journey into self-understanding can be a challenging one, filled with uncomfortable truth, but it is also an essential journey, a pathway that leads us back to our real selves, to reclaiming our lost energy, and to truly living rather than merely existing. But the effects of alienation don't just stop at the loss of energy. When we feel alienated from our real self, we also experience something even more profound. We stop owning our energies. Imagine this: Lisa, a talented pianist, suppresses her passion for music to fit into the mold of a corporate executive, an image her parents relentlessly push onto her. She conforms, her melodies replaced with the harshness of an office setting. She works diligently, achieving milestones and promotions, but with every stride she makes in the corporate world, she distances herself from her authentic self, her love for music and her natural energies. Not owning her energies means Lisa ends up living a life that feels estranged. Her passion for music, her authentic energy, remains unutilized and suppressed. And this suppression comes at a cost borne by her happiness and fulfillment. Like Lisa, when we don't own our energies, we forfeit what makes us unique. We deny our passions, our talents, and our potential. Instead of living a life of authenticity, we are forced into a performance, a perpetual acting job that distances us away from our own vitality and joy. So ask yourself today, are you owning your energies? Are you living a life that is true to your passions, your desires, and your true self? Because, remember, owning our energies is not just about acknowledging our true self, it's also about embracing it and making it the driving force of our lives. Now, let's delve deeper into another critical effect of alienation, the tendency to avoid taking responsibility for our lives. This is an intricate web we weave, often without realizing it. Take John, for instance, a man with a passion for art, but trapped in a job he despises. He blames his circumstances, his parents for not supporting his dream, his employer for not recognizing his talents, and the world for its cruel indifference. But never does John take a moment to confront the real issue, his own refusal to take responsibility for his life. John's life is not unique. Many of us, so entangled in this dance of blame that we forget that the power to change our circumstances lies within us. We look outside for reasons, placing the responsibility of our happiness on others, without realizing that the key to change is within us. In alienating ourselves from our real self, we alienate ourselves from our power to take charge and shape our lives. We hide behind the illusion of victimhood, conveniently placing the blame on others while avoiding the mirror of self-responsibility. So today, take a moment to reflect. Are you like John entrapped in a web of blame? Or are you ready to take the reins and become the author of your own life? Because in the end, we are all artists, and life is our canvas. But to create the masterpiece we desire, we must first accept responsibility for every stroke we paint. As we draw close to the end of our journey, we can reflect on what we've uncovered. Alienation, as we now understand, has far-reaching implications on our psyche. It's a thief in the night, quietly stealing away pieces of our real selves and placing them with the illusions of grandeur and despair. Throughout this narrative, we've traced the subtle yet destructive path of alienation. From its origins in the divide between our real and idealized selves, its emergence in the face of compulsive forces, its manifestations through externalization and self-directed aggression, to its profound effects, including a dampened sense of feeling, a loss of energy, and evasion of life's responsibilities, and the disruptive lack of integrating power. Our explanation of neurosis illuminates not only our understanding of this complex phenomenon, but also reveals a mirror to our inner selves. It's a call to action, to challenge the alienation within us, to bridge the divide between our real and idealized selves, and to reconnect with the full spectrum of our human experience. Remember, the journey to self-realization is not a destination but a continuous path. It's about embracing the complexities of being human, acknowledging our vulnerabilities, and striving for authenticity. It's about dismantling the idol of self-pride and instead fostering self-compassion and self-understanding. And so, as we continue on this voyage of self-improvement, let us remember the wisdom in the words that steadied us on this path. Man, by his very nature and of his own accord, strives towards self-realization. He can only grow if he assumes responsibility for himself. Thank you.